Since childhood, I was raised in the Sam family, groomed to become their future daughter-in-law. At 21, after a night clouded by alcohol and confusion, Sam ended up marrying me. Back then, I was simply overjoyed, believing my lifelong dream had finally come true, unaware that his heart already belonged to another woman. 3 years into our marriage, a woman named Lily returned to the country. That very day, Sam cut his hair, put on a new shirt, and didn't they come home all night. Meanwhile, I was left forgotten beneath a heavy snowstorm. At dawn, Sam finally returned. The house was silent, and fearing he might disturb his sleeping wife, he went straight to his study. Everything inside remained unchanged except for a single photograph and a blank sheet of paper on the desk. The photo was a gift Lily had once given him, and on the back he had written, "Thinking of you, remembering you always." Beside it, on the white paper, was my elegant handwriting, "Sam, I set you free." Chapter 1. The snow fell thick and heavy like torn cotton, blanketing the sky. I sheltered beneath the cemetery gate and pulled out my phone. I dialed Sam's number for the second time. It rang for a few seconds before the call was abruptly cut off. I stood there stunned as the snowflakes, carried by the wind, stung my face with a biting cold that sank deep into my bones. When Sam had dropped me at the cemetery, he said it would snow heavily today and promised he would come early to fetch me. But no, the mountain path was already buried in snow, winding endlessly, with no sign of his arrival. "Miss, if you don't leave now it will be impossible later," the old caretaker warned, rubbing his hands in worry. "Once the road is blocked, no car will be able to get in or out." He pressed my lips together and dialed again for the third time. The call rang, and just as it was about to end, someone answered. A fleeting warmth filled my chest, quickly pierced by sorrow. Sam, but in my frozen ears, it wasn't his voice I heard. It was a soft, tender female voice. "Hello? Are you looking for Sam? I can't answer the phone right now." Chapter 2. A deafening buzz roared in my ears, and I felt as if all the blood in my body had rushed to my head. That morning, Sam had unexpectedly chosen a white shirt he rarely wore, paired with an outdated tie. When he came home to pick me up for the cemetery, I noticed his hair freshly cut and his mood unusually bright. Even his typically cold demeanor seemed softened by a strange tenderness. Before leaving, he had wrapped my scarf around my neck with his own hand, something he had never done in 3 years of marriage. He stood there speechless, watching the snow fall heavier and heavier. The woman's voice came again. "Hello? Are you still there? Did you dial the wrong number?" "What a strange person," she murmured sweetly before hanging up. Chapter 3. He handed the caretaker some money, and he drove me down the mountain in his old van. By the time I returned to Hindwan, it was already late. This was the house where Sam and I had lived after our wedding. When it snowed, the place looked especially quiet and beautiful. After a hot bath, I stood for a long time in front of Sam's study before finally pushing the door open. On the second day after our wedding, he had warned me coldly and firmly, "Don't enter my study without permission. And if you must, don't touch anything." Since I had loved him from childhood, I naturally obeyed every word he said. But now, standing before his desk, I picked up the book lying face down. Inside, I found an old photograph. The girl in the picture had a youthful, innocent face, smiling sweetly and shyly at the camera. On the back, a few delicate lines were written, "For Sam, from Lily." Beneath it, in Sam's handwriting, were the words, "Thinking of you, remembering you always." Chapter 4. As tears rolled down my cheeks, I suddenly burst into laughter. Our marital home was called Hindwan Serene Garden. He had always believed the name came from its calm beauty. But now I realized with painful clarity that perhaps it was named after her, after Lily. He put the photo back in its place. While wiping my tears, I couldn't help but laugh at my own foolishness. The signs had always been there. Lately, Sam had been traveling to France frequently. He thought it was for work and paid no mind. And in the past month, he who once had been so passionate in bed had grown cold and distant. Even 2 nights ago, when I gathered the courage to seek his embrace, he pushed me away. But in the early days after our marriage, he had claimed me almost every night, so ardent that I forgot his indifference during the day. Only now did I understand it had always been a one-sided performance. But if he had already loved another, Why did he come to me so desperately 3 years ago, that night of my 21st birthday? Sam, drunk, had burst into my room. Zoe, do you want this so badly? It tore apart my thin nightgown, his dark eyes burning with overwhelming desire. Then I'll give it to you. EAJ, grant your wish. He leaned down to kiss me, hot and relentless. Even when he entered me, he was rough, almost without tenderness. He felt both fear and pain, yet at the same time a secret joy. Years of unspoken love seemed to finally come true that night. At the height of passion, Sam held me tightly, unwilling to let go. Don't push me away, don't reject me again. Tell me you love me, that you'll never abandon me through my shame and tears. I repeated over and over that I loved him, my heart overflowing with happiness, ready to give it to him completely. How could I have known that night? Sam hadn't lost control out of love. He never loved me. Not once. Leaving our small villa, I looked back at Himjuan, serene under the snow, and knew with absolute clarity I could not stay here another moment. Chapter 5. At dawn, when the snow finally ceased, Sam asked the driver to take him back to Himjuan. The night before, he had been in such a good mood, drinking too much, and with the heavy snow he ended up staying at a hotel. But his body clock remained unchanged, and despite the hangover he woke before sunrise. After a brief haze of confusion, it suddenly came back to him yesterday had been the anniversary of his Motorin Labese death. He had promised Zoe he would pick her up early and bring her home. A sharp pang of guilt pierced his chest. When Zoe was a child, she had lost her parents in an accident. The Sam family took her in. They grew up together like siblings, and he always cared for her as if she were his little sister until she turned 21. That night, Zoe slipped something into his drink, and later, dressed only in a thin nightgown, she clung to him desperately. Under the overwhelming effect of the drug, Sam completely lost control. That night, he mistook her for Lily. He still remembered it clearly. Zoe had cried uncontrollably beneath him, yet she kept repeating over and over, Samgij, I love you so much. Eje never leave you. Eje stay with you all my life. Of course she dared to say it. The elders of the family adored her deeply, and when they discovered what had happened the next morning, they immediately forced him to marry her. Sam let out a cold, bitter laugh. She had gotten exactly what she wanted. But Lily? His marriage had shattered Lily's heart. She left the country and vanished without a trace. Sam pressed his aching temples with a heavy sigh as the car slowly pulled through the gates of Himjuan. All around him was absolute silence. The main house was dark. Sam knew Zoe loved to sleep late, especially in winter, so instead of going to the master bedroom, he went straight to the study. Chapter 6. The study door was ajar, unlocked. On the second day of their marriage, Sam had warned Zoe never to enter. She had always been obedient. For the past 3 years, she had never once stepped foot inside that room. He pushed the door open. Everything looked the same as before. The copy of In Search of Lost Time he had been reading recently still lay face down on the desk. But next to it was something new, a photograph and a sheet of white paper. Sam's heart clenched instantly. He rushed to the desk, picked up the photo, and saw Lily's familiar face smiling at him. Beneath it lay the paper, carefully placed. The handwriting was delicate yet steady, and it contained only a short sentence. At a glance, Sam recognized Zoe's elegant script. Sam, I set you free. Chapter 7. He didn't know how long he had stood there staring at the desk. When he came to his senses, the paper was already crumpled tightly in his fist. That was when his eyes fell on the golden pen lying nearby, the wedding gift Zoe had given him. And now, with that very gift, she had left him another surprise. Sam lowered his head and let out a faint laugh. He turned abruptly and left the study. When he reached the master bedroom and pushed the door open, he found only an empty room. He stood frozen there for a full 30 seconds before releasing an incredulous laugh. Yesterday, he had felt some guilt for forgetting to pick her up, but now that feeling had completely vanished. Sam's face hardened. He threw the crumpled note into the trash and strode down the stairs. Halfway down, his phone suddenly rang. His heart jolted, and he answered quickly only to see Lily's name on the screen. Sam ignored the fleeting sting of disappointment in his chest and answered. Lily, what's the matter? Sam, how about going to the spa in a few days? Bring your wife along too. You want to meet her? I'm really curious about what your wife is like. A sudden wave of irritation surged in Sam's chest. I'm not bringing her. She's spoiled and troublesome. They only ruin the mood. After all, she's still young. 24 and still young? At that age, you were already far more mature, Lily teased softly. What's wrong with you today? Why are you so moody this early in the morning? Nothing. I'm just upset. Then do you want me to keep you company? Lily's voice was still as gentle and sweet as it had been in the old days, and Sam's inexplicable anger slowly melted away. His tone softened. Let's have lunch together. Ella come pick you up. All right. Ella be waiting. Chapter 8. During the days I was away from Hindwan, Sam didn't they call me once. It was always like that, distant, cold, never the one to take the first step. In those days, I met with several lawyers to consult about divorce. Once the papers were ready, I was preparing to return to the old Sam family mansion when I received a call from an unknown number. A woman's intuition told me immediately it was Lily. He hesitated for a few seconds before answering. Hello, who is this? For a long moment, there was only silence. Just as I was about to hang up, the person on the other end finally spoke. Hindwan is beautiful, isn't it? It was the same voice from that night, soft, enveloping, like the spring rain of southern China, yet suffocating me slowly. If you have something to say, then say it. He dug my nails into my palm, letting the pain seep through me. Zoe, she said, a broken mirror is hard to mend. But I still believe. Do you know why? Why? Because what is unattainable is always remembered, but what is once gained and then lost becomes unforgettable. Hindwan is the best proof of that, isn't it? Lily was right. Hindwan was always there, unchanged. Every time he left, every time he returned, just seeing the words, Hindwane remembered her. That was it. Thinking of her constantly, never able to forget. Chapter 9. Sam slowly began to sense something was wrong. So still hadn't they returned to Hindwan. He hadn't they received a single call from the Sam family mansion either. In the past 3 years, whenever Zoe was upset, she would leave for a few days. She always returned to the family estate, and then Sam's grandfather or mother would call him to fetch her. Before, Sam had found those little tricks of hers irritating. But now, her unusual silence felt unsettling. Sam thought for a moment, then called his mother. Standing under the eaves, he exchanged a few trivial words before getting straight to the point. Is Zoe at the old house? Has she been crying in front of you and Grandpa again these past few days? Sam's mother fell silent for a moment before finally replying, yes. She went back. The fog clouding Sam's mind seemed to lift a little. As he played with a small golden bird, a faint smile curved his lips. I'm sure she hasn't given you any peace, has she? Fine, I'll go fetch her before she causes more trouble. Sam, his mother suddenly interrupted him. Zoe has already left. She handed me a few things and then she left. I did everything I could to stop her, but there was no way. Her voice cracked. What did you do to hurt her so badly? Sam froze in place. The little golden birds chirped in alarm against his hands. Slowly he came back to himself, though his expression remained unreadable. What did she give you? If she wants to leave, let her. Where else could she possibly go? Yes, the world was vast, but Zoe only had the Sam family home. It was certain she wouldn't truly leave him. She loved him too much to ever walk away. His mother sobbed softly. She gave me the divorce papers. Zoe said she wants to end the marriage. She wants to leave the capital and never return. For a moment, every sound around Sam seemed to vanish. The sky loomed heavy, as if another blizzard were about to descend. His mother's voice went on, but he heard nothing. Not until she called his name several times did he finally react. What else did she say? Nothing. She didn't say another word. She only asked me to give you the papers when I had the chance. A gust of icy wind whipped the snow against his face. Brushing it aside, Sam spoke in a voice calm and cold. "I collect them myself." He ordered the driver to prepare the car and head for the old Sam family mansion. As the vehicle pulled away from Hindwan, Sam lifted his gaze to the window. The sky was shrouded in dark clouds. A heavy snowfall was coming. And suddenly he remembered that night, the snow had fallen for hours, yet no car had left Hindwan. Then how had Zoe managed to leave? Chapter 10. It was Sam's mother who returned my call. But the voice on the other end was Sam's. "Ibe, read the divorce agreement. There are some clauses I don't agree with." He stood before the hotel's panoramic window, gazing at the sea of city lights cloaked in white snow. Only when a dull ache began to spread slowly from the depths of my heart did I find my voice. "Fine. I have my lawyer contact you." "Zoe, I don't have time to argue with your lawyer." "Then what do you want?" "Let's talk face to face. If it all goes well, I sign immediately." "All right. Where are you?" "I send a car for you." "No need. Tell me the place, and I go." Because of the snow, I arrived almost 20 minutes late. Sam despised tardiness more than anything. When I walked in, I saw him checking his watch, his face full of obvious displeasure. Upon seeing me, his expression grew even colder, and even the golden-rimmed glasses on his straight nose seemed to glint with an icy light. He lowered my head and let out a bitter laugh. When someone doesn't love you, even the smallest mistake becomes intolerable. "I'm sorry. There was too much traffic. I'm not interested in excuses." He drew a deep breath and said softly, "Forgive me for wasting your valuable time." The hand holding the divorce agreement stilled slightly. "Sit down. Let's talk." He sat across from him. "Which clauses don't you agree with?" "Grandfather said that if we divorced before 10 years, no matter whose fault it was, I wouldn't receive his shares." "You knew that, didn't you, Zoe? That's why you asked for a divorcito, threatened me." Chapter 11. He slowly lifted my gaze, looking at him calmly. The man in front of me had been my husband for 3 years, the one I had secretly loved since youth. Yet he was also someone I had never truly understood, someone whose heart I could never reach. He pushed the divorce papers toward me, stood, and ordered without leaving room for discussion. "Pack your bags. Tonight, you're coming back with me to Hindwan." "You can pretend none of this ever happened, Sam," I cut him off. "I go see grandfather to discuss this matter. I make sure it doesn't affect your inheritance. Zoe, you and I both know how much he cares for you. Do you really think they'd let you go so easily after forcing you onto me?" Sam loosened his tie slightly, his brow furrowed, his expression dark, his voice stripped of any warmth. It felt as though someone had torn my heart raw. After 3 years, he had finally spoken the truth he had kept buried deep inside. Poor man. The favored son of fate, yet still condemned to such humiliation. He wanted to laugh, but the burn in my eyes was unbearable. Even though I didn't want to cry, the tears fell uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, Sam." He clutched the divorce papers, my voice trembling so hard my whole body shook. "Forgive me for wasting 3 years of your life, for taking the place of Mrs. Sam. So in any case, I'll do everything in my power to convince grandfather to revoke his decision, so that you won't face any more difficulties." He turned and headed toward the door. He had barely taken 2 steps when his voice rang out behind me. "Do you feel so wronged now? Did you not think of that when you manipulated me?" He turned back to him in disbelief. "Manipulated you?" Sam gave a faint, indifferent smile and looked away coldly. "Zoe, I'll give you one last chance. Come back to Hindwan tonight, and we'll forget all of this." "Sam, I never go back." Sam stared at me for 3 full seconds, and when he finally spoke, his voice was as frigid as ice. "As you wish." Chapter 12. Sam held his teacup, staring out the window, until Lily called his name twice, pulling him from his thoughts. "What are you thinking about?" "The tea's already cold." Lily smiled, taking the cup from his hand and replacing it with a new one, steaming hot. Sam lowered his head and took a small sip. The tea was excellent, yet it tasted like nothing to him. Lily also poured herself a cup and sat beside him. Does your wife still refuse to return home? Sam frowned immediately. Don't mention her. Lily's eyes, always calm and serene, seemed to soothe the hearts of those who looked into them. Sam, I've thought a lot about it. I think I'll go back to France. Why so suddenly? Lily simply smiled sweetly. When I'm unhappy, I want nothing more than for the people I care about to be happy. You and your wife have been happy these 3 years, but ever since I returned, everything has fallen apart. This has nothing to do with you, Sam replied sharply. Says the one who is rebellious and immature, spoiled by the elders, growing more and more out of control. Remembering the scoldings he had received over the phone, Sam felt a wave of irritation. He had never thought Zoe would actually go to grandfather. It seemed this time she was determined to challenge him. He had never once truly considered divorcing her, had only intended to let her throw her tantrum until she calmed down. But now, everything was slipping from his control. How wonderful, Lily smiled softly, but a single tear slipped down her cheek. Why are you crying, Lily? I only envy your wife a little. Lily lifted her gaze, her expression fragile and moving. Sam thought of her sad family history and felt pity. Unlike her, who though she lost her parents young, always had your entire family protecting her, I never had a home. No one ever guided me when I was lost. Her voice cracked. I once said I had no regrets. But now I do. If I hadn't aborted, would we have had another chance? Lily. Sam set down his cup and stood. The past is the past. There is no, what if. Do you still hate me? Hate me for losing our child, for leaving without saying goodbye? Sam shook his head. I never hated you. He was the one who failed you. Whatever you did, it wouldn't have been unjust. Lily broke into sobs and threw herself into his arms. I know deep down you must hate me. I was foolish, unable to forgive. I lost control when I saw Zoe flaunting her marriage to you. Sam's jaw tightened, his face turning pale. Lily's cries were like threads strangling his heart. After losing our baby, I regretted it immediately. You dream of him all the time. A little boy just like you, asking me why I abandoned him. Her sobs grew wrenching. Do you think he could ever forgive me? Sam lowered his head, cupped her face tenderly, and wiped away her tears one by one, until he could taste their bitter saltiness. He will forgive you. He knows you didn't abandon him willingly. Will he ever come back to me? Will he forgive me? Yes, he will. Lily rose on tiptoe, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him desperately. All these years apart, I never loved another man. Let's bring him back, Sam, please. Her dress slid from her shoulders, revealing her pale skin. Back in that moment, Sam thought of Zoe, off that chaotic, frenzied night, of her youthful, tender figure in the shadows. Didn't they know why, in such a tender moment with his former love, the image of his wife invaded his mind. When Lily guided his hand to her chest, Sam abruptly pulled away. His phone was vibrating insistently. Sorry, I need to answer this. Lily bit her lip in disappointment, but remembering the softness she had seen in Sam, she gathered her courage. Love was fragile, but guilt and pity, those could last forever. She wanted to be that thorn in his heart. But then Sam's voice plunged her back into the abyss. What did you say? Soy fantif. Aunt says pregnant. Chapter 13. Sam spoke quickly into the phone, already pulling on his coat as he rushed out. Lily stood frozen, stunned. By the time she came to her senses, Sam had already opened the door. Sam, she ran after him, clutching his sleeve, unwilling to let go. Sam turned and saw Lily's swollen, tear-filled eyes. But in that instant, her tearful face overlapped with the memory of Zoe crying that day. What was he doing? His past with Lily was already over. His wife was Zoe now. He had never truly intended to divorce her. And yet here he was, letting himself become entangled with Lily again. The love and destiny that once bound them had long since been broken. If that night he hadn't lost control with Zoe, if Lily hadn't aborted their child, perhaps their story would have been different. But now there was no turning back. Finally, he pulled his sleeve free from Lily's grasp. I'm sorry, Lily. You have to go. You heard it yourself, my wife is pregnant. And me? What about me, Sam? Lily's tears spilled over. Do you love her now? Is that it? But you said you would only ever love me in this life. You even built Hindwan for me. Lily. Sam frowned slightly and cut her off. I admit it. Yes, I loved you deeply in the past. And it's true Hindwan was named after you. But all of that is behind us. Now I have a wife. He never once thought of divorcing her. And besides, she is carrying my child. Sam raised his hand, gently wiping the tears from her face. I don't want to make the same mistakes again. Sam Lily tried to cling to his hand, but without hesitation he turned and left the room quickly. Didn't they want to falter again? But what about her? And the child she had lost? Lily watched his retreating back without him ever turning around. She collapsed to the floor, as if all strength had drained from her. Had she been wrong back then? If she had endured the humiliation from the Sam family, if she had swallowed her pride a little longer, would things have been different? Perhaps now she wouldn't once again be abandoned by Sam. Covering her face, hot tears streamed endlessly through her fingers. But she cried in silence, not a single sound escaping her lips. Chapter 14. When I awoke from my deep sleep, the first thing I saw was Sam sitting beside my bed. You lay awake. He looked a little haggard, but joy unmistakably shone in his eyes. What happened to me? He opened my eyes with difficulty and glanced around. It seemed to be the room I once occupied in the old Sam family house. But why was I here? Hadn't they grandfather promised to cancel that decision? Hadn't he promised to let me divorce Sam? Why was I still in the Sam household? And why was Sam looking at me that way? Would you like some water? Are you hungry? He can ask the kitchen to prepare something for you. Sam's hand rested gently on my forehead, checking my temperature. Good, no fever. Why am I here? What exactly happened to me? Soy. Sam suddenly took my hand. He tried to pull away, but he held it firmly. You're pregnant. We're going to have a baby. What did you say? He froze, my eyes wide with disbelief. We're going to have a baby. Soy, you're going to be a mother. Sam lowered his head and pressed a tender kiss to the center of my forehead. From now on, you can't keep throwing tantrums like a child. Otherwise, the baby in your belly will laugh at you too. In 3 years of marriage, even in the most passionate moments, there had only been gentle kisses and timid words of love. He had never looked at me like this. He had never whispered with such tenderness. How absurd that all of this was because of a tiny life growing inside me. He won't they? I whispered, brushing away his hand. What won't they? The baby won't they laugh at me. How do you know? Because, I lifted my gaze, calm yet resolute, I don't want this child. Chapter 15. Sam completely lost control. Ever since he was young, he had never been someone to easily display his emotions. Even after we married, though he didn't they love me, he had never once shouted at me or lost his temper. Back when I told him again that I didn't they want this child, Sam snapped and shattered the teacup in front of him. The commotion quickly alarmed the elders of the house. Grandfather called him away, while Sam's mother stayed with me, her face bearing the traces of tears, a mix of joy and sorrow. Seeing those marks of grief made a sharp pain pierce my chest. When I first entered the Sam family, I had been only 5 years old. Out of pity for my orphanhood, Sam's mother had taken me in and raised me as her own. Years of love and tenderness, how could I ever forget them? Mother, I'm so sorry. I threw myself into her arms, weeping softly. Silly child, why are you apologizing? It was Sam who lost control and frightened you. Ella scolded him later. No, I'll beat him myself. Mother, I straightened up, unable to meet her gaze. How could I accept that the husband I loved so deeply always carried another woman in his heart even in our most intimate moments? Worse still, that our marital home bore the name of another woman. I truly am sorry. I don't want this child. He bit down hard on my lip, holding back tears. Ibe disappointed you, and grandfather Sam's mother sat in silence for a moment before her tears suddenly spilled over. Zoe, can't you really give Sam another chance? Her hands trembled as she clutched mine, unwilling to let go. Zoe, I beg you, please. All these years I've raised you like my own daughter, and Ibe never asked you for anything. Just this once, let me beg you. Watching her tears fall endlessly, hearing her pleading voice, how could I stay cruel any longer? Perhaps too because, as an orphan, I knew what it meant to be utterly alone. And now, this tiny life inside me was the only true bond one had. At last, my heart softened. I sat there as tears flowed uncontrollably down my face. Mother, let me think about it a little longer. Overjoyed, she nodded quickly. Of course, of course. Take your time, my dear child, no one will bother you. She left. Soon after, muffled noises drifted in from outside. A servant entered with a bowl of soup, whispering cautiously, "Young madam, the master was very angry just now. He ordered young Master Sam to kneel in the snow in the courtyard. He said he cannot rise until you forgive him." He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was shrouded in grey clouds as snow began to fall again. The stone ground of the garden was already covered by a thick white blanket. And there was Sam, kneeling with his back straight. Unconsciously, I bit my lip, a dull, bitter ache flooding my chest and stinging my nose. He watched for a while before pulling the curtains closed and returning to sit by the bed. Chapter 16. When night fell, the maid told me Sam was still kneeling in the snow, his clothes completely soaked through. He went to see grandfather. "You don't have to plead for him," he said heavily. "Unless you're willing to forgive him. Otherwise, he'd rather have a great-grandchild than keep tolerating that useless man." Grandfather sighed deeply. He and his father are cut from the same worthless cloth. I didn't fully understand what he meant and was about to ask, when a servant rushed in to report that Sam had just collapsed, though he had forced himself back to kneeling again. Outside, the snow was falling thicker and thicker. In this freezing winter, if he continued, his legs would likely be damaged. Between Sam and me there was no deep hatred. On the contrary, the Sam family had given me endless gratitude. I couldn't let it end like this. "Grandfather," I said calmly, "let him stand. And about the child for now, keep it. But as for the divorce, I will not yield." "So, grandfather looked at me gravely, do you truly want to keep this baby?" He clenched my damp palms and nodded firmly. That very night, Sam fell ill with a raging fever. He had always been strong, rarely falling ill. But this time, the fever lingered for 4 or 5 days. Only when the snow began to ease did he start to recover. Once he was well enough, grandfather allowed him to come see me. By then, I had already insisted on moving out of the old Sam mansion and had returned to the hotel where I was staying. Later, once my family's old house was restored, I planned to move there permanently. The day we met again was unusually sunny. Sam had lost weight, his cheeks looked sunken. When he saw me, he hesitated, standing still for a long time before finally approaching. He crouched down in front of me. "Zoe." He reached out as if to take my hand, but I pulled it away. He didn't press. He only asked gently, "I heard you're restoring your old house. Do you plan to move there?" "Yes. If you don't want to return to Hinjuan yet, you can stay in another property I own. I want to live in my own home," I answered, lowering my gaze and placing a hand over my still flat belly. Perhaps it was a woman's instinct. When you know there's life inside you, you cannot help but worry day and night. "If you want to stay there, that's fine," Sam said quietly, watching me. "I'm also redecorating Hinjuan. You never want to hear that name again. It's like a sharp thorn buried deep within my heart, hurting even without being touched." He turned my face toward the window. "I want to rest for a while." "You should go." "All right." Yet Sam still reached out and gently brushed my hair before pulling his hand back quickly. "By the way," he said, "tomorrow we have a scheduled prenatal checkup. Ella come to pick you up." He didn't reply. Sam didn't press further. He stood and left. But the next day, he never came. Even as the appointment time drew near, there was still no sign of him. So I gathered my papers and prepared to go alone. Just as I was about to leave, my phone rang. It was Sam. Soy, something urgent came up, he said hurriedly. Being his voice, I could hear the noise of a crowd. My heart tightened slowly. What happened? He asked. Nothing, just a friend who got into a little trouble. Don't worry, I'll be there soon. Just stay in the room and wait for me, alright? Sam, I tried to ask more, but he had already hung up. Just before the line went dead, I thought I faintly heard a woman's voice sobbing, calling his name. He stood frozen, phone still in my hand. I don't know why, but suddenly I remembered that day in the cemetery, under the snow. Deep down, I knew very well today, Sam would not come back. But that was fine. I no longer felt sad or disappointed. Because since that day, I had stopped expecting anything from him. Chapter 17. I didn't stay waiting in the room. He took my bag and left. When I stepped off the elevator to the lobby, the place was packed with reporters and media. The noise was deafening, like a chaotic marketplace. Camera flashes exploded toward the center of the crowd where a couple stood. Just from the back, I recognized Sam. His coat was draped over the woman beside him. It shielded her completely in his embrace, even covering her head and face with care. She buried her face into his chest. In the cameras, only Sam's cold, icy face could be seen. Mr. Sam, is it true that you and your wife are separated? Is it because of Miss Lily? Mr. Sam, did your wife reveal your stay at the hotel where Miss Lily has shares in order to accuse her of being a mistress out of revenge? What's your opinion of your wife's behavior? Mr. Sam, did Miss Lily truly come between you and your wife? There are rumors that Miss Lily lost your child, and is it true that your marital home, Jinyuan Garden, was named after Lily? Suddenly, Sam snatched a camera that nearly struck his face and slammed it hard onto the ground. The uproar fell into immediate silence. With an icy gaze, Sam declared, "First, whatever happens between my wife and me is our private matter. No comment. Second, Miss Lily never interfered in my marriage, nor is she a mistress. Third, Jinyuan Garden is my home with my wife, and it has nothing to do with anyone else. But Miss Lily's given name has the character Jing in it." Sam shot the reporter a cutting glare. There are countless women in this world named King. Are they all related? As a married man, don't you fear rumors when you protect another woman like this? Don't it hurt to think your wife might see this and suffer? If you vultures hadn't hounded my friend, forcing her to lock herself in the bathroom, there would have been no need for this. So, Mr. Sam, does this mean you have no intention of divorcing? And your relationship with Miss Lily is nothing but friendship? Sam no longer answered. His bodyguards finally arrived, pushing through the crowd and escorting them swiftly out of the lobby. Just as the reporters were about to rush after them, someone shouted, "It's Mrs. Sam. Mrs. Sam is here." The whole crowd surged toward me like a tidal wave. Instinctively, I shielded my belly and tried to avoid them. But someone shoved me hard. I lost my balance and fell heavily to the ground. Blood. Sis bleeding. Call an ambulance, quickly. Voices of panic rose amid the frenzy of flashing lights. The glare was blinding and my world of dazzling white slowly dissolved into darkness. I curled on the frozen floor, closing my eyes little by little. Outside the hospital room, Sam's mother struck him with a brutal slap. He stood there motionless, not even trying to dodge, not even frowning, though a red mark was already burning on his cheek. Sam's mother seemed to have spent all her strength. She collapsed onto the bench, murmuring, "I destroyed Zoe. I ruined her happiness. If I had known you would become worse than an animal, I would rather never have had you as my son. I would have let you leave with Lily without resistance. I should never have tried to bind you to Zoe. This is my punishment." She let out a bitter laugh, but soon tears streamed from her eyes. "But your punishment is even greater. You fell in love with the daughter of your father's mistress. You planned to marry her and have her bear your child. And where did that leave me, your mother? How could I accept watching that woman's daughter step foot into my home? Sam, the night you and Zoe were together I was the one who drugged your drink. Everything was planned to force you into marrying her. I thought I was fixing everything separating you from Lily and fulfilling Zoe's dream. But I was wrong. He was the one who destroyed her life. You were never worthy of her. And now, because of that wretched woman, you've lost your own child. That is your punishment. Sam stared at his mother, unable to believe what he was hearing. What did you say? The drug, it was you. Yes, it was me. Why didn't you tell me earlier? How could I? How could I admit that a mother drugged her own son to separate him from a mistress daughter? She laughed and wept at the same time. Yes, I put the drug, but it was only a light dose. Ask Joseph, Sam, was it really the drug that made you lose control? Or was it because deep down you could no longer resist her? Think about these 3 years, how Zoe treated you. Even a stone would have melted. Yet you abandoned her in a cemetery for an illegitimate child. Do you know how much pain you caused her? Do you know how she left King Garden alone under the blizzard? King Garden, what a cruel joke. You humiliated your wife just to feel noble. But no matter how exalted you think your passion is, the child of a mistress will always be illegitimate. It will never step into our home. Sam stood frozen, his fists clenched until his knuckles turned white, his whole body trembling uncontrollably. Memory swirled before his eyes like a storm. Was it really the drug? Or had it always been his own suppressed desire? It had been a coward, selfishly blaming Zoe, enjoying the privileges of a husband while denying her love and tenderness. Suddenly Sam turned and ran toward the hospital room. He shoved the door open. Zoe was there in her hospital gown, her face pale and streaked with tears. Sam stopped, unable to step closer, unable to wipe away her tears. After a long silence, Zoe finally spoke her first and last words to him. Sam, let's divorce. I never want to see you again. Chapter 19. When I recovered my health and left Beijing, it was nearly the end of the year and the city was blanketed in snow. Sam's mother came to see me off. I knew Sam was also in the car, but I didn't want to see him. And naturally, his mother didn't force me. He never blamed her for what had happened in the past. But after everything had been revealed, I couldn't help thinking, if none of this had happened, what would my life have been like? Perhaps I would have married someone I didn't love and lived an ordinary life. Or perhaps I would never have married at all, choosing instead to live on my own terms. He loved him once. He was married to him for 3 years. In the end, all I gained was pain. But thankfully, my body was healing. And I was still young. A whole world of possibilities still lay before me. If you have the chance, please come back to visit us. Your grandfather and I will always remember you. Sam's mother helped adjust my scarf. She looked much older, worn down beyond recognition. The loss of the baby had been a devastating blow to her, and her disappointment in Sam was absolute. I will, I said, gently smoothing the gray strands at her temple. Please take good care of yourself and grandfather. She nodded, fresh tears filling her reddened eyes. He helped wipe them away, whispering softly, Mother, don't be sad. Do you hate me? She asked. No, I answered, I only remember how you loved me all these years. She covered her mouth, sobbing bitterly. Zoe Jing Garden no longer exists. Sam had it demolished. That day at the hotel, it was Lily who leaked everything to the press, who orchestrated it all. And about your miscarriage, it was Lily who paid someone to push you. He was stunned. He had always thought it was an accident. But it turned out to have been planned. Even so, perhaps it was fate. Those who must pay will pay. Those who must be punished will be punished. He trusts justice. Sam's mother clenched her teeth. She even had the audacity to send people to beg forgiveness. He will never forgive her. No matter what happens, I will never forgive her. Sam said the same. It will make sure Lily ends up in prison. He exhaled deeply. That's fine. Not even the deepest love could surpass the ties of blood. If I hadn't lost the baby, would Sam hate her so much now? But I no longer wanted to think about it. I embraced Sam's mother one last time and then got into the car. Zoe, Zoe, she called after me. Promise you'll come see mother again. Once inside, I couldn't resist lowering the window to look back. Through the icy wind, I saw Sam's mother waving endlessly. Not far away, Sam stood beneath a withered tree, tall and straight, still young and handsome. But he no longer had the power to make me sigh, to ache, or to move me with just one glance. All those things I once thought eternal, all those overwhelming feelings had already been left behind in the past. Just as our eyes were about to meet, I turned my head and closed the window. The road to the airport was long, and halfway there I fell asleep. In my dream, I returned to my childhood. I was only 5 years old when I first arrived at Sam's house. Over time, we grew closer. When he practiced calligraphy, I would sit on his lap, and he would guide my tiny hand, teaching me to write my name stroke by stroke. Later, when I grew a little older, the practice books were filled with his handwriting. My writing began to look very much like his. But throughout those long years, the only words he ever wrote were words of longing and love for Lily. And all I chased was a cold, unreachable shadow. Chapter 20. When Sam turned 35, many of his friends and cousins of the same age were already married with happy families. But he remained alone. King Garden, once demolished, was never rebuilt. Over time, the land was left wild and desolate. His mother's health worsened year by year, and she spent most of her time recuperating in the south, refusing to see him. Before the new year, his grandfather succumbed to pneumonia and passed away. Even on his deathbed, the old man kept calling Zoe's name, holding on to his last breath just to see her one final time. She arrived in the middle of the night, rushed to his side, and accompanied him through the final moments of his life. At the funeral, Zoe's tears never stopped. She supported Sam's mother, and the two of them wept uncontrollably together. After the funeral, Zoe prepared to leave. On the day of her departure, they finally exchanged a few words. But the first thing she called him was Brother Sam, just as she had before she turned 14. When Jing Garden was demolished, Sam had gone through the library. There he found an old diary. From the age of 14 onward, the pages had been filled with the confessions of a young girl in love, every word and every stroke brimming with affection and tenderness. Back then, he used to tease her, asking why she had stopped calling him brother. Now he understood. Just as he, when facing Lily, refused to call her older sister even though she was half a year older than him. Many items from the old library had been discarded. But that yellow diary and Zoe's calligraphy copies, Sam had taken them with him, without even knowing why. Over the years, he had rarely dreamed of Zoe. And on the few occasions he did, her face was always blurred. But today, she was right there in front of him, alive, real. He could clearly see her ink-black brows, her thick lashes casting shadows in the sunlight, and the tiny brown mole at the corner of her eye. He lifted his hand, wanting to brush her hair, wanting to tease her, "Why are you calling me brother again?" But in the end, he did nothing. He only whispered softly, "Come visit us when you can. Mother always misses you." "Yes, I will," she replied. Then silence fell between them again, until Zoe's car arrived. Quietly, Sam picked up her suitcase. "Let me walk you." Zoe hesitated, but before she could refuse, he was already moving forward, carrying it for her. Every corner of the old Sam residence was familiar to them both. They walked along winding paths, across the garden, over the lawn, past the old tree. And in that moment, Sam thought he heard the laughter of little Zoe echoing somewhere. She had always been playful by nature, mischievous in spirit. She could even climb trees better than him. Once, she had climbed all the way to the top of a towering tree, terrifying the whole family. Even grandfather had panicked, wobbling over with his cane, demanding they bring a ladder to get her down. But before anyone could react, she had already climbed down gracefully on her own. Among the thick green leaves, she had laughed and shouted over and over, "Brother Sam, catch me. I'm going to jump." "Don't be reckless, you'll fall," he had scolded her sternly. But she hadn't cared. She had only let out a mischievous, fearless laugh and leapt without hesitation. His heart had pounded, But his face had remained calm as he caught her easily in his arms, just as expected. Sam's mother had clutched her chest in fright, pretending to be angry and threatening punishment. Soy had hidden behind him, darting around in circles to avoid it. He couldn't help but laugh, protecting her, pleading on her behalf. Because truly, who in the family could ever resist her? Everyone adored her. And he did too. When had things started to change? Why could they never return to how it once was? Didn't they understand did the human heart change so easily? Or was it that in youth, one always failed to treasure what was right within reach? The great gates of the old house loomed before them now. A wild, impossible desire stirred in him if only they could keep walking forever, never reaching that gate. If only they could go back in time. Distime, he would confess his heart openly. It would tell her clearly that when things ended with Lily, that love had already died. That afterward, only guilt and pity for the lost child had remained. That he had never stopped loving her. That he had always wanted to marry her. That during those 3 years of marriage, he had truly been happy. But it was already too late. Soy stepped into the car, smiled, and waved goodbye, just as she was about to close the window. Sam rushed forward, pressing his hand against the glass as it rose. Soy, he called. She lifted her gaze with a gentle smile still on her face, yet surprise flickered in her eyes. His heart clenched with a sharp, piercing pain. A buzzing filled his ears, like the unbearable cry of cicadas in summer. Is something wrong, Brother Sam? She asked, looking at him calmly and sincerely. Ace stood there, staring at her in silence for a long time, until his phone rang again. She lowered her eyes, drew a small smile, and began typing quickly. At last, he stepped back. Nothing. Travel safely. Let me know when you arrive. She nodded, waved at him once more, and returned to her message, not even sparing him a final glance. The car started. Slowly, it turned the corner ahead and disappeared from his sight. Time passed, steady and unrelenting, year after year. After Lily was released from prison, she begged countless times to see him once more. He refused. She sought intermediaries, pleading and imploring, but he never agreed to meet her. Some said she later married a widower or perhaps she never married at all. Wistime, news of her faded completely. When Sam turned 42, his mother passed away. Soy traveled from afar with her husband and children to attend the funeral. It was the last time they would see each other in this life. As they said their farewells, Zoe stood before him, her eyes shimmering as though holding back tears, but in the end, she didn't utter a single word. He remained standing at the gates of the old house, watching the car carry her away, unmoving for a long time, until birds burst from the branches in startled flight. Then he lowered his head and smiled faintly, rubbing the wedding ring on his finger, before turning back and slowly walking into the old mansion. It followed the same path Zoe had once taken when she left, step by step, until he returned to the study. There, he pulled out the golden pen Zoe had given him on their wedding day. He held it for a long time in his hands before finally writing a single sentence slowly upon the paper. 4 more years passed. On a spring day, the very day he and Zoe had once married, the servants noticed he had not come down for breakfast. Alarmed, they forced open the study door. They found him seated in the armchair before the desk, already gone. On the desk lay a worn photograph, its edges creased from years of being touched. In the picture, a young Zoe smiled, an image from 20 years ago. Scattered across the desk were sheets of white paper. With that same golden pen, he had written in uneven strokes, looking back, where the clouds are deepest, all that remains is regret that everything was too hasty. 3 fleeting years and they left him trapped in the same place for a lifetime. While Zoe had already gone, far, far away.